Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, alongside me tonight from the great Midwest. I have with me RDV, and we're going to be discussing the 1985 B sea level booby film called Barbarian Queen. And I call it that because, as many people will attest who grew up and actually lived during the 80s, there is a great deal of underground, pseudo sexy, erotic exploitation, sexploitation type movies that existed that really embraced the female body, whether it's sexual hijinks and escapades while you're going skiing, or like we talked about recently, some movies like Gore, Sword and Sorcery, and Sandals, and all that, and Women Galore. We decided to continue that theme. And tonight with Barbarian Queen, I got to tell you, I don't think RDV I've seen this since the 80s, and I watched it again, and thank you Tubi for producing it for free for us with a good quality
Yep.
print. I appreciate the fact that I don't believe they really left anything out. So those that are hardcore fans of this kind of stuff understand what to expect in this kind of movie, but I'll just get the shocker stuff out of the way first. This movie's got a few dozen breast scenes, and it starts off with like not one, but there's two, and a potential, I think if I recall correctly, a third. And I'm watching my words carefully.
Gratuitous nudity, I'd
Well,
say.
no, no. The gratuity nobody cares about because everybody's
Yeah.
body positive these days. But I'm talking more about the forcing yourself upon somebody that's not
Oh
wanting
yes.
it type term. I'm just going to leave it at that.
A lot of toxic men in here. Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it's very toxic what happens because I got to tell you, Roger
Rapists,
Corman
basically.
produced this movie along with a few others during the decade of the 80s. So here's the thing, he's the guy that knows how to produce stuff cheaply and get it done. And I've mentioned that's a template that I like. Right off the bat, we get an attractive woman. We're like, hey, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, we get some slobs, come out of the woods out of nowhere that trap her literally. And then they start, some rough stuff or whatever. And we get a lot of stuff. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, is this a horror movie or is this a.
It's like it's almost like that movie, The Last House on the Left,
It's one
or
of the
something like that.
those are like rape revenge fantasy types, and this one makes you go, wait a minute, it's supposed to be sword and sorcery. How serious is it going to be? Is it going to be goofy?
Yeah.
But overall, I gotta say, it starts off well. It is what it is. It's only like 70 minutes long, so it's really, really short. It's worth it for a watch if you want to see the other side of movies that existed in the 80s. I think it's a decent watch. I don't think it's as good as Gore, though,
Uh,
or maybe as
no,
entertaining
it's
as.
not that. I wouldn't say this. Yeah, entertains gore, but I
No, but
was.
it's definitely worth a watch.
If you like, basically women with swords getting revenge on guys, I mean, the main girl here, well, I was say not girl, but woman is Lana Clarkson, the late Lana Clarkson, who was tragically murdered. Um, but we'll get into that later. But she's pretty much like what would we compare to comic books today would be like Red Sonja in that sense. She in the movie she's basically betrothed to this of her village. She's gonna get betrothed to this other guy. He's like the prince of their village. They get attacked. He's basically brought in by the evil king, the warlord, or whoever wants to have gladiators. She's thought to be dead, but she and three other women survived, or two other women, and then they basically run into her younger sister, who was basically assaulted by the king. Uh, and then basically the whole thing is they want to go rescue their people. They were taken hostage. They were left,
Yeah.
and throughout the way they make allies. So people are basically kind of like they're always, and it's funny. It's always the allies like, whoa, we don't want to get involved, and then they always get involved at the end.
Of course.
Yeah, but you get, like you said, there's a lot of topless women in here. So I mean, if you're offended by that, I can understand. It's not the movie for you. I didn't realize how much there was. I was like, I remember there being some, but I was like, wow. And then plus there's orgies in here too, but you don't really see anything. You just see a lot of topless women. You see guys shirtless men. That's about it. But it's barbarians. It's the savage times. That's basically what it's supposed to be. Basically, if you watch a Conan movie made correctly today.
Yeah, it's a Conan ripoff. Let's be honest,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Conan's probably like the gold standard for these types of films, which weren't too popular, but they're a cheap way to get a little bit of reaction out of people and some money. And I think when we eventually discuss Conan, we'll be talking about just some of the epic stuff in there. And one of them is, of course, Valeria, the female in there. I think she's your gold standard for when it comes to an effective woman that's can kick ass with swords and all that too. So one
Mm-hmm.
thing about Lana Clarkson I wanted to mention because you brought her up, that's obviously not her in the photograph that I picked. I
No.
I picked a different one for different reasons. But with Lana Clarkson, she does well enough in here where it's kind of sort of believable. And yeah, you have to check your brain into the door. But she did most of her own stunts in here. And while the fighting's not what I would call grade A, at least there's not 50 gazillion jump cuts that give you a headache or whatever. And it's kind of silly. And it's really, really hard to coordinate vast numbers of people on a big set and we'll watch them go. And you know, it's not what you're watching the movie for, but again, the way it starts off, it hooks you in there. You understand what's going on. There's definitely a reason why things are happening, and it moves fast. But Lana Clarkson, there's one scene in here, I'm telling you, RDV, I went, ooh, I wasn't expecting that. And it was kind of
Yeah.
graphic where another lady is kind of strung up, if you will, topless. And she comes out to the side of the guy that's messing around with her. And she takes her sword and just drives it straight through the guy's neck from like right under the guy's ear
That
all the way
that that
through the
was
other. And I was like, that's pretty good. I like
that was
that.
Katt Shea, who's been in some other movies.
Yep.
Strip to Kill, Rage, the Rage, Carrie 2, Poison Ivy. Recently has been in Nancy Drew, the TV series.
Oh, there you go.
I
That's
guess, or at least
something.
it's Nancy Drew in the Hidden Staircase. I'm not sure if that's a movie or well, probably a movie, but yeah, a lot of these women here. I mean, if Lana Clarkson would be alive today, she'd be like in her early 60s too. Sadly,
So why do you
but
think we don't see more nudity like this in movies?
well, the feminist thing, I'd say. I mean, and it's because so many people are prudes. Uh, it's based the whole argument: are you for porn or are you against porn? That's basic. I mean, it's simple down to that part. Because even though this isn't pornography, but it's still you're showing topless women. There's even a full frontal shot in here, and a lot of women came out against this as they went against the gore. They didn't that it was the feminist movement, you know, saying it's women being exploited in films. You know, we can't do this. I mean, I don't know how much or how little these women were paid in this movie, but I mean, if they're getting paid, if they're doing this willingly because they want the role and because it pays well, they should be able to do what they want. Now, but also the other reason is because it's not kid friendly. That's the biggest reason.
Right. Right. And I think too, you know, when you talk about a movie like this, it's definitely not for kids. As schlocky as it is, one of the interesting things, like in our recent review of a James Bond movie, as we're, you know, Professor Pooks and I are doing monthly here, we just got through doing The Spy Who Loved Me. And I said, it's about time they take a woman that's very attractive but make her very complimentary to Bond. And there's some great chemistry in there. But one of the other women that shows up in there intentionally chose her role in there, Carolyn Monroe, instead of being in Superman, which was like, the Bond franchise was the thing at that time versus this unknown movie Superman, which many still think's the best Superman movie there is. And it just shows the power of what it means for a woman to get a role on there. And yes, beauty sells or look sells. So I appreciate the fact that in the 80s when women would get topless or show some skin or whatever, that's fine. But it's like the most erotic or dangerous thing that exists now in the past 10 years is like the side boob thing or whatever. It's like, that's lame, because if you grew up in the 80s, you saw tons of boobs, you saw bush, you saw lots of things. And it's not something that I think that really offended anybody at the time. It's like, yeah, that's kind of nice. It's kind of like, ooh, that's really nice. But women weren't prudish about doing it. It wasn't like they were staring at, while they're acting and that they're feeling uncomfortable, right? So like Lana obviously did this in a lot of other films too. So it was okay because you got cast into it. You could make a living off of doing it. It wasn't that big of a deal. And yes, you're an adult. You know what you're getting into before you even sign the contract. So no, definitely no exploitation at all involved in
No.
here, even though the movie comes across that way. You know what I mean?
Yes, I mean, this movie obviously didn't do so well because it's a low budget, so I didn't expect it to give you a high rating. And you can tell it's low budget by the clothing, everything. But even so, the costumes they're pretty like nifty.
They're not bad.
No, the main, in the beginning you see it kind of looks like you see Lana Clarkson in the very beginning. Is this Gilligan's Island? It's like,
God, yeah.
With the straw huts and all that stuff and this everything. We get her lover Argon. It's Frank Zagarino. I don't think he's in anything else. I mean, but the girl on the I believe you have on the thumbnail is Andrea Barberi. I believe that's the one that got killed in the one refused, and she ran out, got with the sword.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
there's one big scene in here that we have to bring up, so might as well do that now that I'm thinking about it. And it's tough because we talk about 80s being clean cut movies. There's a
Yes.
scene here where, of course, the idea of being a Conan ripoff is, of course, is that most of the people are slaughtered, a few people survive, and they somehow make their way back into the evil city, and they infiltrate it or whatever. But of course, there's some that are taken as slaves, and there's a scene where one of the ladies is spread eagle on vertically on a torture rack.
Yep.
And of course, you got the torture guy that never seems to be interested in anything other than this job, which I never understood. And
I mean, can you blame him? He's got devices to torture women. You know,
he goes
he's
to
a creepy
torture
perv.
her. He's a creepy bastard, and he kind of violates some of the basic trainings of what you would get in the modern day CIA, and that is don't get too close to your victim because
Yes. He
that's the way
decides
bad things can happen.
it was weird because he's got a torture rack, and then he's got, from a chain or string, he's got like a gauntlet, so it's meant to like please her, rub her,
Yeah.
her top. And then he decides, you know what? He gets excited. He grows up. He's gonna like have his way with her. Problem is that she squeezes too hard. I thought this was funny. I looked at those corny things like, she's not even using her legs. Oh, that's what she's using. Oh, the poor guy. And basically tricks him into untying her, and then she pushes him into the vat of acid. So he gets his just desserts. Later on, though, when the king finally discovers his body, before there was nothing. All of a sudden, there's a skeleton in the bubbling water. I'm like, that's acid. Isn't he supposed to be gone? Well, no. So that was kind of a goof. I mean, there's even a part where a priest gets shot in the back, but somehow it goes to his forehead.
Yeah, it's and it's tough because this is something you go, oh man, I can't wait to watch it again. No, you get into a weird mood and you go, I'm gonna watch some of these and you binge them, right? Because that's always a thing.
The only thing that I'm kind of missing from this, and I want to one more, is more sword fighting. We get towards the end, but I mean, like, there's parts where she's like doing the barbarian thing where she is tall. I mean, what Lana Clarkson, she's got to be like 5'11".
She's fit.
Yeah, she's fit too. She's kicking these, what barbarians do? You fight the sword fight, and then you kick the guy. That's basically what you'd see in like in all movies with barbarian stuff. That's how they fight. And like I said, I wanted a step further. Where's the decapitation? We saw a guy get run through with a sword. We've seen that stuff, but we didn't see anybody get like an arm chopped off and just blood spurting. That would have been funny, especially on this low budget.
It's hard to say why, but Corman didn't get, I would say, overly graphic in these things. But Lana herself, she's a natural beauty. I mean, blonde hair, all that stuff, statuesque and everything too.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a presence on there. It's not like she's just somebody they picked off the streets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the second girl, the one who ends up the brunette in here, she's the one that's helps out her at the end. Katt Shea. She actually, I was reading that she actually had applied for this or auditioned for this at all for the, but they hired somebody else, and then but the problem is that actress ended up getting a TV plot, so they basically called her back in. Mm-hmm. So she had to fly. She said she flew down to Argentina, and she spent like 2.5 months wearing skimpy outfits or nothing at all. I mean, you're being paid to do nothing. Yeah, it's. It'll come, I mean, and now someone say like, "Wow, this is like you're exploiting women." Like, I was going to say again, if a woman chooses to do with her body, that's her choice, right? Apparently, are we supposed to respect them? But I don't know. Weirdos can't get that past the head that somebody can actually enjoy doing something that they don't enjoy.
Yeah, and you had other movies that were popular at the time that were kind of in the fantasy realm here too.
Amazon's Death Stalker.
Highlander would be getting ready to come out.
Yeah.
A ton of them. Sheena, Red Sonja, Conan, of course, Excalibur. We keep forgetting to talk about that one, but it's it wasn't just a one-off. It was a thing. And again, this is an Argentine movie that was made by Roger Corman, who's known for a lot of things. Younger viewers.
Well, this wasn't Roger Corman.
He's definitely been around. Well, he produced it for.
Oh yeah, This is Héctor Olivera as a
Right,
director.
in Argentina, he had a thing with Roger Corman, so Roger's going to make sure that they meet certain requirements for what he was doing. That was their deal, and so this is one of like a whole bunch. So Roger was very good at being very efficient. You know, he made another movie with a lot of chopped up footage from here that had most of the sword fights you were talking about in it, and obviously you get the big battle here at the end, where, like I say, it's hard to coordinate a lot of things going on, but it's pretty simple. It's kind of lame and limp,
Yeah,
but I'll argue a point you had mentioned before, one of the previous movies we talked about recently, Gore, where you said, you know, at least there's no green screens, and that's true.
yeah,
So it's not the easiest thing to do, but you know, you have attractive people or people that fit the role, and attractive doesn't mean good looking. It means, you know, they look appropriate for it. The two things I think we're missing that I was getting spoiled that I wish this movie had, and I put one of them in chat here as an observation, is I wish this had like an Oliver Reed or some sort of Jack Palance heavy type in it that would have given it a little bit more
yeah.
gusto. And I wish it had more of an 80s type soundtrack, because I feel like it was just
Armando
missing. You know
Capo
what I
was
mean?
kind of like he wasn't like, oh, I'm a king, but he's kind of a pushover. He wasn't very like a heavy like Jack Palance would just kill his men if they disobeyed. This guy's just kind of like, yes, yes, go do what you need to do, leave me alone. You know, it's like he came off such a pansy. You know,
Yeah.
but he did look like the creep. He did look like the politician.
Yeah, he was a creepy
There's a
bastard.
scene. There's a scene where he leans over and you see his and you see out of the left side of his mouth, there's two teeth coming out. He's smirking as he's leaning down, looking up at. I'm like the camera shot. That was awesome. Because he doesn't have any teeth.
And it wasn't until the late 80s that the bad guys got to be good looking, smooth operators, and the anti heroes were prepubescent 14-year-old looking vampires.
There was no Robert Davies until later.
Oh, he was around, but yeah, you're right. I mean, he was in Goonies. Yeah. You know, look, I'll just say this. These kind of movies exist. There's a whole bunch of them. Are they worth really going through all of them? You know what? The thing is people that like this kind of thing, they're going to want to watch it. So we've kind of bashed a little bit on Lord of the Rings, and it's unwatchable to me. It's not fun. You know, you take something that's fantastical that's out, that's not necessarily very good, and it's got some forced stuff into it, and that's a show called Lock and Key that's in season 3 on Netflix. I watch it and I go, well, it's made by the people from Lost, Carlton Cuse, and it's done Fringe and I think some others. It's a very watchable show, and nobody really pisses you off that much, and it is made for a younger audience. I'm not even going to say like juvenile, preteen type fiction. I'm talking young. So I kind of respect that it does it, but when I watch an episode, I go, it's okay. You know, it makes you almost want to watch it for some reason, because you feel like they put thought into what's going on here. This is a kind of movie that you go, I know exactly what I'm getting. Wow, okay. Not only did I see a couple boobs, I saw a lot of them, dozens and dozens and dozens of them, literally. And do you really want to see the sword fighting that much? Not unless it's going to be serious or like you say, hardcore graphic with beheadings and stuff like that. Right now, nothing's going to top Conan as far as I'm concerned. And you know, it is what it is. It's a cheap B-rated movie that, you know, you'd go to a drive-in and see, or catch it in a midnight flick, maybe on a before the big film that you went to go see, and it has a place for that. You don't get that anymore
This
these
was
days.
this was the movie that basically you would sneak behind your mother and try to go watch, you know, with your friends if you're 12 years old.
Yeah, or you'd say, "Hey man,
And then
did you
you'd be
see
like,
this movie?" Yeah,
and then you'd lose your basically, you'd be walking out with cigarettes, candy cigarettes.
yeah. So we haven't chatted talking about how it's on YouTube. That's the version that I watched. I know it's also on Tubi.
And
Tubi
Tubi has
typically is very consistently
yeah.
has the highest level prints. YouTube sometimes does, but I think sometimes YouTube might not have as high quality as what might be on Tubi.
I think Tubi had their quality was 480p.
Okay,
So
so then it was
was that
probably
bad?
from the same print.
But
Yeah.
but if you want to get these movies, though, go through Shout Factory.
Shout Factory's the machine. Yep.
They have all the unrated and extended deleted scenes and stuff. So it extends it a little more. So it's a little longer. So being 70 minutes, I think it's like 90 minutes. I'm not sure. So but no, yeah. So a lot of people in here that I've never even heard of. I mean, Katt Shea went on directed for what she wrote, The Patriot for Roger Corman. She said, I was reading up on her biography. She basically became a director because she was uncomfortable being an actress, even though she did it for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
She went and then she directed another one. Did Strip to Kill? That was another one for Roger Corman. So she went on and she's still basically directing movies. She or writing. Poison Ivy was her big breakthrough in 1992.
Yep.
And then she directed the Rage Carry 2. That was another big one. And she just did another one, Rescued by Ruby. So she's still making movies, still directing stuff.
Well, and the thing too, to kind of close up a little bit on what we're talking about here and finish up, is that I mentioned Roger Corman before, and I didn't really think I'd talk about him this much, but he was known as a guy, like I say, that made do with what he had, got through with a lot of it. And when you have a smaller group that's more flexible, all hands on deck kind of mentality, yeah, I think it's sometimes a bit more of a rewarding experience in the sense that you come to have a bit more, I think, of an attachment with people that you work with. So then later on, you have a tendency to call on people that you work well with together. But on these big budget spectacles, which Hollywood's afraid of not doing, you have so many people and so many hands in it. And, are you really in touch with the 200 people that you've contracted halfway around the world to do CGI shot number 427 out of 1,000? I mean, you just look at the dailies and the prints, and then you got to have somebody edit it. And it's very not, it doesn't really feel like they have that much of the artist's touch put into it. And so you can go, yeah, I can see where this is a Corman type film or a Sword Sandals kind of thing. So we've talked about, I think, consistently the group that did the best job of putting this type of stuff together was Canon Films. Of course, they ended up going bankrupt, but they had a nice little run there for a long time with a lot of watchable, entertaining, decent movies that don't have to be, a 4-star type movie or the best movie of the year, make the most money or like that. But it's something where it's enjoyable and you have fun with it. And this is one of those kind of movies. It's not as good as I think the other ones are, but it just depends. The other ones don't have nearly the amount of nudity this one does. So if you're in a mood for that,
I remember Howard R. Cohen. He's done some other movies that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he has. I know he's okay. I think he's done the Deathstalkers.
Yeah, and the thing too is that you'll get known as a director for doing certain types of films. So you get something like this done with Roger Corman successful, he's going to keep chugging them out. And the ladies in here you're going to notice that they're going to be in some other things too. And there was probably more immediate level here in America of films with like women in prison and this and that. So
this
works out that way.
This Cohen, he is the guy who wrote the screenplay for Deathstalker.
Yep.
He also wrote episodes for Rainbow Bright, which is really funny to go from this to that. It's this Space Case and some other things, but
I even had to mention on prison movies too. I think Linda Blair is in one of them. She's had an interesting career. Some stuff outside
Heat was the one we're talking about last Sunday.
Caged Heat,
yeah, that was a big one, and then they remade it in the 90s. So,
any other final thoughts?
Final thoughts on this is I mean, I'll just say both these movies we reviewed. We reviewed Gore. We reviewed this, but Barbarian Queen. Soundtracks are great. They don't have to be like big power bands like Queen, stuff like that. Just you're simple. They fit the theme of the movie. And I think that really helps build the fantasy. You have the if you played a game like The Witcher, the music they have in there really amps up the mood. And this, it's just kind of like you get like the bard kind of like music. When they're drinking and if their guys are chasing the girls, the gladiators are, you can tell you're basically transported back to that era. So so it does a good job as that. But the sword fighting, I agree, it was just like 1, 2, 3 slash 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Those swords are heavy.
Yeah, that's the thing though. Imagine if they were actually lifting real swords. Majority of those people were like, nope.
Yeah,
they all had foam swords. They all had like wooden swords.
Well, see, and just the thing is if you have a prison movie, let's say you want to see someone get shanked, you want to see who's on top of the food chain, you want to learn the intricacies of what goes on behind the prison, all the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, and of course you want to see the big fight, the cat fight that's going to happen between the women. You want to see clothes ripped off. You want to see some sort of subplot that distracts you from the other stuff that's filler, and you get that. You get stuff like that in here where you go, holy crap, this woman's been violated at the beginning, and now the whole town's massacred. Now we completely understand what's going on. We want these women to get their revenge.
I mean, it's believable. These are the barbarian age. They're not going to be like, I'm not gonna go plumage, and go after these women over here and molest them. No, that's what these ruthless men, barbarians, were. They were outcasts. That's what they do. They're still barbarians today.
Yeah.
We call
Here,
them
take my sword. I don't need it right now. Just bring it back later when you're done with it.
Hey, Genghis Khan. No, sir. I don't feel like that today. Just give me some food. Really? It's like, what? No. So, and I think that's why a lot of people are kind of offended by this movie, because it's like, oh my gosh, they're actually showing it. This was what happened. Well, yeah. Hawk the Slayer, they basically avoided that. It almost happened in Gore, but they avoided it, so you couldn't see it. They usually pan away. These guys, they show you that her shirt getting ripped off, her dress, and they're fondling her. But that's about it as far as they go. They do pan away. They're not showing you like,
the act. Yeah.
It's not like that. That if you want to see that, that's the last house on the lake, or whatever that is.
Left. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget here too, because it's a foreign film. There's standards can be different, and
it's Italian films.
The sensibilities too. Yeah. So
but,
Argentina, I believe.
But but I mean, like Italian movies had a lot of this stuff too.
Well, they're not as snuffy sexually as American films are.
Americans had the MPAA, where the other countries are like, no, dude, we embrace it. Look at France; they embrace sexuality.
Yeah, it's just the way it's presented. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Barbarian Queen. Check it out on Tubi, YouTube, and let us know of other ones you want us to do. We've got a few suggestions already in that we're taking a look at. Conan is the big movie on Sunday night that we're going to be doing. So whether you watch it before or you wait and see our
Sunday night, it's 7 Eastern.
7 Eastern, exactly. So let other people know if you're so willing to do so. We'll get a big audience for that. And we'll talk about, because it's definitely one of my top films for a decade. We had a recent subscriber on the Xtreme Movie Show, and he went back to some of our older videos too, where we had our top movies of, like, say 1981 or 82, and he went ahead and put in what his list was too. And that's kind of cool, because we started off by doing that just to give people an idea of, hey, these are movies we want to give attention to, starting from the 80s and branching off from there into other fields. And so it's pretty cool to see that when somebody that's brand new comes in over to the channel, finds some older content that they like or whatever, and they go ahead and put in their stuff, because that's just what we're here to do, is talk about stuff. And it's also a great opportunity for us to kind of revisit some stuff too, because we don't necessarily have a particularly set order for these things, but again, a lot of it is driven not just by what we want to see, but what everyone who subscribes and participates wants to see as well.
And I don't care what anybody says, Tulsa Doom is greater than Darth Vader. There you go.
And Darth Vader is a child.
He's a guy on a breathing iron lung machine.
He's a vegan.
He has numbers to call his mother. Pick him up.
All right, have a good night, everybody. And as always, remember to stay extreme.